Okay, I take over. Hello, everyone. Before we start with our topic for today, I would like to make a general announcement. Up until now, we didn't share the recordings of the group reflections, which we do at the end of the meditation, so that we would safeguard the delicacy of the sharing. But after the last webinar, we received several requests to have the recordings, to make them available. It was really deep and precious. So we have decided to, make these recordings of our group reflection available. If you would like to share, but to have your sharing remain anonymous, you can still do so by sending them to us via email, to my email address that Alexander will give in the end. Yeah, we appreciate each contribution. You send in very beautiful sharings, very precious. They are gems in this work of connecting the dots. Okay. So our topic for today is meeting the soul of our nation through the heart. Last time, in our last webinar, we have been exploring the ground for such a high meeting. And today we will focus on a few details of the process. So first of all, what is a soul of a nation? We actually don't know so much about it. DK has not given us much information. Is it a deva? Probably. Jeffrey Hodson speaks of the angel of a nation, and Rudolf Steiner calls it an archangel. And we probably will go into this question in a deeper way at a later point. But for now, our working definition is the higher consciousness of a nation, to leave it general. So, how do we get in touch with a high entity about whom we don't know very much? As always, as with everything, the first step is our inner attitude. So we set a firm intention to serve the highest, and in our case, to serve the highest aspect of our nation. And as we are tuning into unfamiliar high altitude, it is good to keep our mind humble and to keep it as far as possible empty of preconceived ideas and expectations. Our mental eyes are not yet accustomed to this higher light, and so our discernment is not developed yet at the beginning of this process. So it seems that in these first steps, our heart is a safer guide than our mind. So we first of all listen to our heart. And we give space to an inner sense of reverence. We could say that we tune our heart to the wavelengths of reverence, making it pure. And then it acts like a magnet that pulls us towards the sacred. It's like an antenna for the sacred, like a dowsing rod maybe. So we can scan the energy, the quality, the atmosphere with our hearts. And our mental eyes will adjust later. And then we can start to discern the details and start to define things. Until this time, until our mental eyes can see more clearly, we are taking a risk, like all pioneers. And the risk is for us falling into glamour and illusion, and also to expose ourselves to forces which are beyond our capacity to handle. So we need to be alert and watchful, but at the same time there's no choice. We have to dare, because it's on us as disciples, as light workers, to make this step, to build this bridge to the soul, individually and also collectively, nation-wise. And we know that the time is now. So we will do it, and we will we will do it as safely as we can. So let's consider a few safeguards. So as we said before, this intention, to set our intention to serve the highest, is our first and basic safeguard. And then to set our heart on the wavelength of reverence. It's our second basic safeguard. And in our experience, and also DK said it, it is important to do this work, collective work, not as an individual, but as a group. Even if we are physically maybe doing it alone, we do it always as part of a group. And then the group field can act as a buffer for the high energy impact. It can balance out things. Okay, so with these basic safeguards in place, let's look at this process of alignments that we can do to make it a gradual, safe approach. So we first tune into what we already know in the higher world. And this for us is the ashramic world in general. For us, it's a trusted address, so to speak. We are familiar with the ashramic world. We align with it all the time. We have a felt sense of it. We have developed an esoteric sense. Who knows how to tune to this specific vibration? As we know, and as we also said we stressed it in the last webinar, it's on the Buddhic plane. And once we get more adjusted to this vibration, become used to it, and our esoteric sense registers it more clearly, more definedly, from this place then we can experiment with tuning ourselves more specifically, and that means with those ashramic and devic beings who work with the soul of our own nation. And when we do this, when we enter into resonance with these higher subtle co-workers, we come like into a held space in which it becomes easier to open to the higher reality of the soul of our nation. According to our intention and our commitment, these co-workers on the higher planes reciprocate our engagement with us, their engagement with us, and over time a working relationship develops, a cooperation. We get to know each other, tune to each other more and more easily. And in this way we build kind of a solid ground, kind of a platform on which we can stand and from which we can do this stretch into something that is not known to us yet. And it is then as if a channel is held for us, so we can open ourselves to this experiment. And in the beginning, we make ourselves completely empty of any previous ideas and expectations. Make ourselves completely receptive. And when the mind is quiet, then we can sense, we use our sense, our esoteric sense, more through the heart. And we allow the quality, the atmosphere, the vibration of the soul of the nation to make itself felt to our antennas in our telepathic group field. And this needs some time to get established. And then we can begin to do more specific things. We can take a question with us and hold it into this higher light. And then the group is like brooding and is in a sustained meditative listening. And in this sustained listening, the outlines of collective patterns can be perceived by the group. Sometimes sudden insights can just precipitate into the group field like a flash, or sometimes something is gradually emerging in the consciousness of the group. So we become this chalice and we receive these impressions and we bring them down with us. And then it is very important to distribute this high energy and to do it as a group, because it can be very strong, too strong for an individual. And then the energies flow through us as a group from the national soul into the national personality. And then after the meditation, the group reflection has also this distributive function, continues the distribution and the grounding by formulating and intoning our impressions. We help the national soul energy to manifest. And by listening to each other's impressions, we build these higher qualities into our group field. And again, it's a process of learning. We become better and better in being receivers and broadcasters and reflectors of national soul energy. So we learn to become an instrument, a radio station, which picks up telepathically the higher frequencies and translates them into thought forms and densifies them into words that can be sounded in the concrete world. And we do this, we receive and share and listen to each other's impressions, addressing all this as sacred gifts with humility and reverence. And we hold them together in a kind of suspense. They are already in word form, but we do our best to keep them in suspense, to keep them fluid, and to keep away our judgment, and also keeping free from taking them as the truth. And in such an atmosphere of honest and clear-eyed and loving group sharing, we can do a lot to neutralize any glamour that may befall us in this work. Okay, so this is a sustained, respectful process, an art to be practiced. So let us now do some practice, experiencing these steps in meditation. What I have outlined now, it's more or less the same process we will now do with our eyes closed in meditation and afterwards share.